Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Squat Cobbler. It's episode 75. Before we get into the deep meaning of that, my name is Mike. You can find me at Official Pagan on everything, except I really only use Instagram. Everything else is just reposts from Instagram. So just find me on Instagram. And joining me, as always,
Hey everybody, it's Kelly at KELLYTHUL on Twitter and Instagram, and I guess I use them about equally.
I would love to be on Twitter more. I go through bursts where I feel like I use Twitter more frequently, but it's really just Instagram. There's something, and I know on all of the social media platforms you can post images, but it's just something about I would rather show people than talk about things, if that makes sense. And because it is formatted, I know you can share pictures on Twitter, but because it's based entirely around images, I just feel like it works better as a platform for that.
It is the visual aspect of it is really, really cool. I'm getting a little bursty on Twitter myself. I'm a little embittered because I've fallen off the hashtag game for a little while, and I got back into it. There was a hashtag going out that was Meat Music was the hashtag, and it was, you wanted to kind of come up with some combination of a song and meat. And I tweeted out, I don't know why it is, but I typically do 3, and I tweeted out 3 that I thought were all pretty good, and they got like no love at all, and I was sad.
So what were your 3?
So 2 of them I'm going to have to go back and pull up, and I'll check on that. But the one that I figured was gold was bacon whoopee instead of making whoopee, bacon whoopee, which
Nice.
I think
I like it.
Pretty solid, and apparently Twitter disagreed, which is fine. Twitter, be that way. Yeah, and I did a couple of Who tributes. Meatball Wizard,
Nice.
I think that's pretty solid, and GNU Are You? And none of them got any love whatsoever. Very disappointing.
So here's the thing to everybody who's on Twitter. All right, meatballs, the Who, these are things that I guess people are entitled to their opinions on, but there is no opinion on bacon. It's just a fact that bacon is amazing.
Yeah, you just use the word and you're guaranteed to get a couple retweets and the like. Just stick it into any tweet for no reason.
Right. You just put the word bacon in there. And here's the thing. I feel like you're not doing your job as an American if you don't like bacon.
I'm with you.
We need to make America bacon again, Kelly.
There you go. So that's MABA.
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 That's it. Starting right now. Kelly and I are starting the MABA scene. Make America bacon again, kids.
Yeah, we can do the hat with the phrase on it, and like the caps that have kind of the gold piping on the bill for a Navy guy or something. I'm not really sure what those were, but we could just have little bacon strips up there. I think
oh my God, that's amazing. I want a MABA hat right now.
We'll get rolling with this. It's gonna catch on.
So for anybody who loves these tangents that we go on, and by the way, we haven't even started the episode yet.
In a way, I think we have.
That's true, I guess. So off air, Kelly and I were talking, and, we record these a little bit in advance. We wanted to get a couple down so that we're not leaving you guys hanging in case anything comes up and we're not able to record for a week. One of the things we were talking about is maybe just doing an episode, because this is episode 75. As everyone knows, historically, podcasts on the 75th episode don't talk about anything. They just historically kind of just go off on tangents like this and just, kind of let it free flow.
Yeah, and we're hoping that the theory is maybe we'll get it out of our system, Mike, and then for future Squat Cobblers, we might actually get to whatever we're talking about a little quicker. So it's almost a tangent cleanse, if you will, that we're going to attempt to do a little bit tonight.
So I hear what you're saying, but I don't necessarily like the insinuation that it's me who takes us off on these tangents. I feel like this is a team effort here, Kelly.
Well, I mean, with the exception of me, I don't know, shutting down the Hangout, I'm not really sure. I think that I would say maybe I'm being a little unfair, but if we were to do a tangent tally, I would say you might have a bit of an edge on me.
I really like the idea of a tangent tally. I don't know how real world possible that is 75 episodes in.
No, I think it's not unreasonable with all the free time you and I both have to go back to all the past episodes and start including that in the description. Kind of do a tangent tally.
I mean, it was your idea, so who am I to step on your toes here? I feel like this is definitely a Kelly-centric project.
I'll put it on the stack. We'll see where we can go, but I think that would be helpful, and fair warning to listeners in the future when they bring up the blog entry, we can put it right up front so they'll know what our tangent tally is.
If we do this episode today, that's just basically one long tangent because we really had no structure or concept coming into this thing. So it's one long tangent. Does this count as one?
I think each new path probably does that. I think you know a tangent when you see it. I would say the tangent tally for this episode will be larger than one. I'll need to consult the record books as I go through and determine an appropriate thing. Do some instant replay. Sorry, Saints fans, and we'll do some things there.
I assume that that's a football reference.
Yes, it is a football reference, and don't know timing wise where this episode will make its way out, but it'll be around. Either the Super Bowl would have happened or it's about to happen. And since you're not steeped in football lore, Mike, since you're from Philadelphia and they won the Super Bowl last year and other people had to explain what happened. So
I was like, why is there rioting?
So there's two games where teams are playing to get to earn their spot to the Super Bowl. And in the first game that occurred, time's about running out, and the New Orleans Saints had the ball, and the quarterback threw a pass, and the wide receiver was clearly interfered with. So this was not only was there pass interference where you can't, if the ball's in the air, you can't be making contact with the wide receiver. That was happening. The type of contact happened to be helmet to helmet, which is also illegal. So it was like a double foul, and nothing was called. And just given where that happened, where it was in the game and all that, had that penalty been called, the New Orleans Saints would have been playing in the Super Bowl, but it wasn't called. And so the Rams are going, and there was much anger from the New Orleans side, as you might imagine. And then wishful thinking about, well, maybe they'll replay the game from that point or something like that, which unlikely. So that'd be officially a tangent, I think.
So that whole football thing was a tangent?
That football thing's a tangent.
Oh, okay. See, I missed it because I don't know about sports. I am a terrible Philadelphia fan, though. So during the Super Bowl last year, did you watch the Super Bowl last year, Kelly?
I did.
So I did not. I was in Canada during the Super Bowl. And apparently, so football exists in Canada. And again, I'm speaking as a non-sports fan. I have no idea what I'm talking about, but this is what Canadians told me while I was in their land. While football exists there, it is not the same level of popularity that it is here. It's not one of their top tier sports the same way that it is here. So they were asking me about American football and the fanaticism around American football. And I was like, wow, you are really speaking to the wrong person. I am the worst possible emissary for this. And they said, well, are you going to watch your Super Bowl? Like, are you excited about that? I said, not only am I not excited about it, I said, I am from Philadelphia. I understand that they're in the Super Bowl and still don't care. And while the Super Bowl was going on, we stopped at... So I don't know much about Canada. One thing I did learn, though, is that Canadians think all Americans, love Applebees. That is their signpost for Americans is Applebees. So when we were booking the trip, we were going to Canada so that I could record at Niagara Falls, and then we could shoot some video and stuff like that. And when we were booking this trip, we were looking at different hotels, and I'd never been to Canada before. So on a touristy side of that, I was curious to see Niagara Falls and all the touristy stuff in that area. Have you been to Canada, Kelly?
I have. Actually, gosh, is it about 2 years ago now? The Women's World Cup, more sports for you. There you go. The Women's World Cup soccer was hosted in Canada. We went up and watched the women's soccer team play China.
Nice. And was that an enjoyable experience as a sports fan?
It was very enjoyable. I mean, I'm not a huge soccer guy, but really cool just to kind of be part of the whole World Cup thing. And we had pretty nice seats, and it was a beautiful day. And America won. So, even better.
Well, when I was there, they were asking me a lot about this, and I was in. So to Canadians, Americans love football and Applebee's, and we were booking this trip. Every hotel that we initially looked at gave you their relative location to an Applebee's in all of the listings. So the first one that we looked at was like, I don't remember the name, and I'm not going to mention hotels, but because I'm not here to pander for them unless they're willing to pay me.
That's right. We will
Yeah.
absolutely pander. But
100%. I will lie and say I stayed at your hotel and it was the greatest experience of my life if you're willing to give me any money whatsoever. So we were there, and like the first hotel we looked at, it was like 8 blocks from Applebee's. And then it would be like 9 blocks from Niagara Falls. And you'd think Niagara Falls might be the bigger tourist attraction. But every hotel gave the proximity to Applebee's. So the one that we ended up staying with, it became a joke because we were looking at the hotels, like laughing, like, how far is that from Applebee's? And the hotel we ended up staying at, which is the hotel that is directly on Niagara Falls, like looking over the falls, that hotel, like as their big final punctuating their sales pitch, you got all through, the view, and if you get the falls facing side, you're literally looking down into Niagara Falls and all of this stuff. And the final bullet point was, we're next to Applebee's. So I was like, well, done, sold. Obviously, this is the place. And we bought this package deal through Groupon, and that included meal tickets for Applebee's. Now, nothing against Applebee's, but I haven't really eaten a great deal at Applebee's, but I pretty much spend a weekend living off of Applebee's because we had like free breakfast and lunch every day at Applebee's and a $20 gift card for each night as part of this strange deal that we did. So we just lived off of Applebee's essentially while we were there. And nothing against it. Applebee's is fine, but those are the two things that I took away from Canadian culture, or at least their perspective. Canadian culture's perspective of American culture is that we love Applebee's and football, except me. I was like, yeah, this is like the third time I've been to an Applebee's and I don't know anything about football, and I'm from Philadelphia. So my excitement, we were back in the hotel room, and I guess it was later in the game at this point. Netflix had done their announcement of the third Cloverfield film appearing on Netflix after the Super Bowl. And they announced this with no fanfare other than this one Super Bowl ad, and like sneak attack the world with this highly anticipated sci-fi movie. So I found out about that through social media from people posting about it after the commercial had already aired. So that was my excitement over the Super Bowl, was that I was going to get to see the third Cloverfield film. I mean, then I saw the movie, but my excitement though for the Super Bowl was the Cloverfield ad that I didn't even actually see. I learned about third hand from people on social media. Are you a fan of the Cloverfield movies, Kelly?
Really, just the first one. I've dabbled in the second and just couldn't get as I really enjoyed the first one quite a bit. I've not gone in there, and there's several painfully lengthy YouTube videos out there talking about the Cloverfield effect and a bunch of other kind of intersections, and it seems like a lot of work to understand. And so I'm at this point kind of going like, big monster showed up, caused problems, good, I'm done. So
I mean, you kind of summed it up.
Did mean to mention that, Canada is on the metric system, and my metric system knowledge is a little bit weak, but I'm fairly certain that Applebee's is actually one of the kind of primary units of measure, and so I don't think it's an assumption that Americans. I think they just simply use Applebee's as a point of reference in the metric system. So, but I could
be
wrong.
9 Applebee's away.
It's just you see it on the signs on the highway.
Yeah, it was interesting. I really enjoyed Canada. It was very different. I've been a few places. I don't think I'm as well traveled as you, because I know you travel a lot for your work. But I've been to maybe 5 countries now, and never have I been more aware of tourism than I was in Canada. Which sounds strange because I've been in like Costa Rica and Nicaragua and places like that. And so everywhere you go, and this is my own shortcomings, I guess, I only speak English, and I as a kid knew sporadic phrases in Polish, but I only speak English now. And everywhere I've gone, the 5 countries that I've been to, everybody speaks English, which just puts our education system to shame. But never have I seen tourism the same way that I did in Canada, because the person who drove us ruined their sneakers on our first night there by trudging through the snow in sneakers. So the next morning we had to get them new shoes because they only brought 1 pair of shoes and they were destroyed. So we had to leave that like touristy area, their sort of like Vegas Strip area that's right near Niagara Falls, where every sign was in English. And other than the fact that road signs used the metric system, you wouldn't know you weren't in America. Everything was in English. Everything gave you American dollar prices for everything. As soon as you were out of that little quarantined tourism area, literally everything we saw was in French from that point forward.
And there you are walking around in your Make America Bacon Again hat.
I know. See how we brought it full circle. Is it even really a tangent anymore?
That's right. I think it just negated the tangent.
We canceled out the tangent.
I still think the Applebees is strong in the story, so I think the Applebees will keep it tangent territory.
I don't know. It's just like Cloverfield, where there's alternate universes. So you weren't into the second Cloverfield film?
No. I mean, and I haven't, to be fair, I haven't given it a huge chance, but I've just really caught little pieces of it, and I've never really just had the inclination to say, yeah, this one's the next up in rotation. Go back.
For whatever it's worth, it's by far the best of the three movies.
Oh, okay.
by a long shot, the best of the three movies. The first one I enjoyed, don't get me wrong. The second one I thought was excellent and vastly superior to the first one, which is very unusual for a sequel. And then the third one, I don't hate it the way a lot of people did. There was a strong, as I'm sure you might be aware, a strong internet backlash against it, and people questioning or pointing out the fact that the surprise release after the Super Bowl was just excellent marketing and a way to dump a movie that might be subpar and get the most out of it. I didn't hate it the way that a lot of people seem to, but it dumbs down all of the fan theories into the most simple explanation and then proceeds to re-explain that simple explanation to you over and over again in progressively simpler terms.
Okay, so you've sold me on looking at 2 and not at 3. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, and again, it's like, it's hard because I don't hate 3. It's just like, if you want to be forced fed a really dumb, simple explanation for the 3 films you've just watched, watch 3.
Take it under consideration.
I mean, so if you're like me, if you watch 1 and 2, you're probably going to watch 3. just because you've seen 1 and 2, it's going to, for me, it would bother me to not know what happens in 3.
Yeah, and that'd be true. Our good friend Mel, she's a completionist too. So I think I'm not where she's at in her Cloverfield arc, but my guess is if she's only 2 and she'll have to watch the third because she's got to check that box and say, number 3, I watched 3.
I am strange like that. There are shows that I've finished or movies that I don't like. But I get to a certain point, and this isn't Cloverfield. Again, I didn't hate it the way a lot of people seem to. The third one is visibly subpar compared to 1 and 2, but it's not a terrible, unwatchable movie. It's entertaining. It's just, you had 2 really, really strong movies, and then the really weak one that kind of explains them in the dumbest way possible. For me, I am a completionist, though, and there's been shows like, did you watch the show True Blood when it was on?
I did not.
So I did, and it got to a point, the show got so awful. And so this wasn't like Dexter. So I was really into Dexter. And Dexter, the last couple seasons, took a sudden plummet in quality, with the last season just being laughably bad. Like some terrible fan fiction production that just doesn't make any sense and completely falls apart. But it starts off really strong. This wasn't like that. Like, this started off okay and kind of coasted along there, and then somewhere in the middle just turns to complete garbage. But at that point, I was so far into it, I was like, well, I'm seeing this through to the end. And I remember messaging with someone, another fellow snark aleck who was watching it. I'm not going to mention their name because, I don't want to I don't know if they want to be known as someone who watched True Blood. But a fellow snark aleck and I were messaging each other about it, and this was like the final season of the show. And I remember the messages being like, why are we watching this? This is terrible. What's wrong with us as people?
Pretty sure even if I had watched True Blood, I'd be denying it now, but I haven't. Truth, I am not that snark aleck.
Some snark aleck. I'll let you guys decide.
Yeah, no, that any conspiracy theories out there, fan theories out there that I'm the unnamed snark aleck, I'm not.
No, it is not, Kelly. I just don't want to throw anyone under the True Blood bus.
That would be good.
It was funny, though. So before True Blood came on, there was, of course, the sudden surge in mainstream. And I guess vampire stuff has maintained a certain level of popularity. But of course, after Twilight, vampire related fiction and films and things like that took a sudden soar towards the top of everyone's radar. And they were doing HBO in the lead up to True Blood was doing these vampire themed like little 15-minute pseudo documentaries, like talking to people about like goth culture and vampire films and different things like that. And a friend of mine was interviewed for that. So he actually appears in all of these videos. So my fondest memory of True Blood has nothing to do with the show. It was their like promo campaign that they put my friend in. So speaking of TV, what shows are you watching recently, Kelly?
Well, I'm fired up. Surprisingly, again, for when Walking Dead comes back, they've kind of won me over, and they're coming to an interesting part of the storyline within the Walking Dead comics. So I'm fired up for that. Always doing the countdown for Better Call Saul. That's pretty good. But my main right now, my only appointment viewing is Worst Cooks in America every Sunday night because our good friend Allison Wolf is on there, and she hasn't been cut yet. I catch the Worst Cooks. It's an interesting show, but that's been about it. I've been mostly going through more of the Netflix and Amazon Prime catalog, and found out there was a fantastic Captain Beefheart biography documentary where they really ran all the way through all of the stuff, and so that's about it. Outside of True Blood reruns, what are you watching?
The only thing I'm watching like that is currently airing, because I'm a Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime guy all the way. So if I can't watch it on my own time, my own pace, for the most part, I am not interested. I just worked my way through the 4-part Ted Bundy documentary on Netflix.
Yeah, I did that too.
What did you think of it?
Again, heavily marketed, and a lot of this don't watch it alone. To a degree, I was like, well, I guess you didn't want me to watch it alone so that someone was there to keep me awake because it was pacing was a little slow for me. I had totally missed the fact that so spoilers, folks, if you're not familiar with Mr. Bundy, that he escaped twice. I totally missed that part of the scenario. So that part was actually kind of interesting. I thought they did a good job of giving you insight. There's also going to be, and I believe it's on Netflix, Zac Efron will be playing Mr. Bundy in another Ted Bundy related production here pretty soon.
Yeah, I saw a few things about that. So I watched the Bundy thing and I burned through it maybe in 2 sittings. This is what, 4 hours total?
Yeah, I think so. 4 episodes, each running a little bit, around an hour, a little plus.
Yeah, so I want to say I did it in 2 sittings. A bunch of my friends were surprised, but I actually don't know or didn't know very much about Ted Bundy. In terms of serial killers, he's one that I was a little less familiar with. As far as the better known, I don't want to say popular, better known serial killers, I was a little less familiar with him, which surprised a lot of my friends because so our mutual friend, Shane Ryan, who has been on podcasts with us. Shane, of course, is the creator of the Amateur Porn Star Killer series, of which I'm involved in. The Amateur Porn Star Killer series, his character that Shane created and plays in the series, Brandon, is heavily modeled after Ted Bundy. But I think people forget that I didn't create that series. Shane did. So I actually was not super familiar with Ted Bundy. I knew nothing about his prison escapes. So to me, that was the most interesting segment of this documentary series was everything about the escapes.
Yeah, that was really kind of interesting. Like I said, I don't know how I kind of missed that during the unfolding of events, but twice is a pretty... you get once, say, oh, okay. People let their guard down, but for it to happen twice is something.
Yeah, it was the second time that was amazing to me. So the first time, you kind of get it, like he jumped out of a window in court. Have you ever been in court, Kelly?
Only on a jury.
I've never been on a jury.
You should be thankful.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but negative experiences from people. I've never been on a jury. I don't drive and I don't vote. So I'm a conscientious objector to what's happening in our political system in America right now. So I'm not currently a registered voter. So I've never been on a jury. I've been to court, though. You might be surprised to learn.
Oh yeah. Startled. That was unanticipated.
And I've been to court after the whole Ted Bundy escaping from the courthouse thing. And I can, like, it makes sense to me. Like, I've been in courthouses. They're just kind of, everything's crazy and people are running around. It's not hard to imagine somebody getting away who is awaiting trial. it wasn't. It's not hard for me to wrap my head around that one. What's hard for me to wrap my head around is the second escape, because you figure, okay, this person has already escaped. Let's put them under extra guard. Make sure that, locked in tight and that key's really well protected. But no, escaped a second time. That's really what piqued my curiosity during the documentary.
It was pretty amazing, the lack of any additional care that they applied to, or didn't apply rather, that got him out.
Very interesting to listen to. And it reminded me a little bit of, so we had on the show, we had done a prisoner exchange. We did a Burzum album, and we spoke about how, you need to separate the artist from the art, and maybe you shouldn't look too deeply into the artist's backstory. But Varg, who is the main proprietor of Burzum, he escaped from prison when he was in prison. And I remember it initially being reported as like a daring prison escape, giving you all these ideas in your head of, some huge prison break, epic, cinematic type thing. And really what it was he was given a weekend pass from prison, which apparently you can get through good behavior, and he just didn't come back at the end of the weekend.
That doesn't quite fit daring to me.
Yeah, it was very anticlimactic when you found out the real circumstances. Like, no, we just let him leave, and then he was supposed to come back. Say, I don't remember what it was, but say it was, you had to leave on Friday, and he was supposed to come back Sunday, and then Sunday rolled around, and he just didn't come back. The evil genius.
So, Mike, if you were plotting your prison escape,
I don't know. I don't know if I would try. I guess it would depend on my sentence. Like, if I was going to get out in any reasonable amount of time, and I'm even including 5 years, 10 years, something like that, I'd probably just wait it out, because it's not worth getting shot to, not spend another couple years there. Now, if it was like life in prison, or I was on death row or something along those lines, go for it. And I would probably do the big daring thing. Like, I don't think I'd be Ted Bundy and try and crawl through air ducts or anything like that. Or I guess if you have a life sentence, maybe you wouldn't get a weekend pass.
You would think.
Yeah. But actually, Varg had he was in prison in Norway. He had what is their longest prison sentence. So, that was essentially a life sentence, and he still got weekend passes. I mean, I would assume they revoked the weekend passes after the escape.
Or they at least gave him a very stern talking to say, now, the next weekend pass you get, we expect you to come back.
Yeah, we're going to call and make sure.
That's right. No repeats of this behavior, Mr. Varg.
So what gets me prison escape wise, there are people who are associated. I don't want to get into the whole, because this would be a 4-hour long tangent show. I'm not going to get into the whole Silk Road story, but there are people who are associated with Silk Road, the drug trafficking website, who are in prison now, or allegedly affiliated with Silk Road, who are in prison now, as some people are still awaiting trials. Though some of those people made substantial amounts of money trafficking their wares on Silk Road, and presumably have a lot of connections in the sort of illegal underworld sort of realm. You would think maybe some of those people could orchestrate an escape. The movie epic cinematic style escape, not the crawl through the grate escape.
Yeah, I could see that. They could buy a big drone, a really big drone.
I mean, there's some of those people involved in those enterprises made tens of millions of dollars off of that. You would think that they certainly have the finances to orchestrate something like that. What about you, Kelly? Prison escape?
So I'm kind of with you that kind of risk versus reward. that even if you're successful, are you really successful? Because the clock's just ticking on. Yeah, you're out, but for how long? I would go with my standby that I utilize. I still stand by the fact that it's the single best defense mechanism in the zombie apocalypse. I think the hot air balloon has been underrated as a vehicle of opportunity, and so I think some sort of hot air balloon related escape would be a route to go, and hope that the winds are favorable, so I don't just float over the prison yard. as they shoot the balloon down. But I guess the one hole of that theory is that's not a vehicle that's adept at a speedy getaway.
Well, how long have we been at this tonight, Kelly?
I think long enough. So I think that would be my call on it.
So I think we learned two important things here tonight. The first is we can easily fill an entire show of nothing.
I think we've proven that. I think we absolutely have proven that.
The second one is Kelly is pro prison breaks. So if you happen to be incarcerated and you're listening to this, Kelly told you to try and escape. Good night, everybody.
Thanks.
All right, I'm going to stop the broadcast.